Hey y'all, welcome to the cold open. Yes, I was dancing with the King James Bible. If you're only listening and not watching, you're really missing out. But anyway, I want to give y'all a bit of a PSA, public service announcement. Um, this is because I read a book recently where I assumed that the author was a Christian for various reasons, and I don't know whether he is or isn't. And I also assumed that whatever theology would be presented in that book would line up with the Bible. And I was wrong. So, in this book that I read, which otherwise was really great, but there's a scene in the book where a pastor preaches a sermon basically saying that all people go to be with God when they die. And of course, that's just not true. The Bible teaches that Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life, and that no one comes to the Father except through him. So, why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because on this show, we're going to talk about all kinds of books, whether they are categorized as Christian or secular, quote unquote. And yes, biblical truth is true regardless of where you find it. I mean, I have listened to Rolling Stone songs and fallen on my knees because I heard the Lord speak to me through that. Because biblical truth is true regardless of whether the writer takes that truth all the way to Jesus. Sometimes writers who don't know the Lord at all still put some biblical truth in their work without even knowing it. But the reason I give you all the example of this book I read is because we want to love fiction, enjoy fiction. We can even learn from fiction. We can see instances of biblical truth in secular fiction. What we don't want to do is get our theology from fiction. Please don't ever do that. Get your theology from the Bible, meaning what you believe about God and man and sin and death and morality and redemption and salvation. Get that from the Bible. Anything else we read, we need to filter it through what we know to be true from the Bible. So we can enjoy it, but in the back of our minds, we need to know what's true and what's not. So maybe you don't need this warning for yourself. Maybe you're solid in your faith, but you've got a 13-year-old in your house. Be selective about what you let that 13-year-old read. Or maybe you're going through a crisis of faith, or you're a new believer, you're not solid in your beliefs yet. Be selective about what fiction you read. And above all, even if you're a solid believer, just remember, filter your fiction through the lens of Scripture and not the other way around. That's all I have for now, and I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the episode. Hey, everybody, and welcome to Oh My Word with Katie, the show where we hear from Christian writers, give you amazing book recommendations, and talk about all the ways God shows up in words and stories. I'm your host, Katie Ginn, and today I am so excited to welcome Christina Baehr to the show. Christina lives in Tasmania, Australia, with her husband. She is a mother of 10 children, and she is the author of a series of cozy gothic fantasy novels called The Secrets of Ormdale. And her latest is A Menagerie of Dragons, which is book one of the new series, The Gilded Age of Dragons. And yes, the two series are connected. And yes, they're all marvelous and wonderful. Christina, thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
All right, so we have a lot to talk about. But before we get into it, you told me that you actually had a childhood pen pal from Mississippi.
Yeah,
So
I did.
what can you tell
I
me about
I
this
even
person?
I even visited her in the 90s, when I was, I think 13. Um, yeah, she was really important to me. Her name, it was Molly Wall. I'm guessing she may be married by now, and that's really all I remember. She had a brother named Grant. Her parents were Mr. Wall and Mrs. Wall.
Yeah. And she's from Corinth, you said, right?
That's where I visited her, but I
Okay.
don't remember more about it because I was a child. My
Yeah.
parents arranged the trip and took me there. Yeah.
Okay. But y'all are about the same age?
Yes. Oh,
Okay.
she may. I think she was like 2 years older than me. I'm 44.
Okay.
I think she was 2 years older.
Okay. All right.
We were
That
both
gives us,
homeschooled, so 2 years don't matter.
yeah, yeah. All right. Perfect. Well, that gives us a lot of information. So, Mississippians, you heard her, Molly Wall, Corinth, Mississippi. Let's find her. Let's reconnect these pen pals. That's going to be amazing. Uh, but I have just absolutely loved these books of yours. All the dragons, all the intrigue, all the cozy gothic fantasy vibes. When I saw those three words on your website, I was like, yes, sign me up. Um,
Yay.
but the amazing thing that I read on your website is, I think on your website, is the story of how you came to write the first book. Will you please set
Mhm.
the scene and tell us how you came to write Wormwood Abbey?
Ah, so it was 2022, and we had a really hard year. I think that many people will relate. They can remember a year when it seemed like everything was hard. And I mean, we're very blessed. Our marriage was fine, and other important things were fine. Our faith was there, but with just a lot of medical issues. And so my husband's mother, they realized that she was dying quite quickly of cancer.
Mm,
And her last wish was that we would all go see her with all of our kids. So we, and she was in California, we were in Tasmania, so as far away as you could get from each other, really. And I was pregnant, and so we had to wait until we had the baby, and then we traveled with a 3-week-old baby who was
mm,
actually, it was complicated because she was actually failing to thrive.
mm,
So I was dealing with all of the anxiety surrounding having a small baby that was actually not well, and we had our 9 kids. It was during the beginning of like kind of COVID restrictions, and so everyone had to wear a mask for the whole like 20 hours of flying. If you can imagine,
yeah.
multiple toddlers
Mm. Yeah, no.
and everyone, around you is, you know, stressed. The world was stressed.
Yeah.
And so we had to deal with my lovely mother-in-law's passing, and the grief and difficulty that comes up in the family during that time. We were able to be with her though, which was wonderful. We were all, she had actually all of her grandchildren, all of her children and grandchildren in the room with her at her home as she passed away, singing hymns and
Mm,
reading poetry to her. It was really very beautiful, but still,
yeah.
hard for all of us. And then we also, our daughter, when we got back, our daughter had open heart surgery on her 12th birthday, and our teenager, at the time we only had one teenager, our teenager developed a basically an untreatable chronic illness that she still lives with. And so this was all in 2022, um, at the same time as homeschooling 10 kids and running a ministry, a hospitality ministry from our property here.
Mm,
So it was a very difficult and demanding year on a number of levels. And at the end of 2022, I was very depleted. I don't think I realized how depleted I was because I kind of, kept a brave face
mhm,
on it throughout the year. And I found myself, just kind of stories popping into my head and ideas popping into my head. And I remember feeling really frustrated and actually crying and saying to God, I don't know what these are for. Like I don't,
yeah.
I don't want to just be escaping into a kind of a fantasy world that has no relevance to my family or my life, but if I have stories that I need to tell, please show me how to do that.
Mhm,
And I've always written, I've always done creative writing, but usually it's been more nonfiction and related to like my music career that I had, or communicating to our supporters with our ministry. But I was used to writing things.
mhm,
And I had this idea suddenly of a novel. And I think it was very much an escape in a good way. I think there's a wonderful quote from I think it's C.S. Lewis, but it might be G.K. Chesterton. Help me if you know, because I should know this. But it's a quote basically saying, when someone is in a very bad place, you should encourage them to escape. Like escape
mhm,
is not necessarily a bad thing. It could be a
mhm,
good thing. So for me, this was taking some moments to escape to a place where I could remember feeling just uncomplicated childish joy. And I started to write this story. And I was writing it like in the middle of the night when I was breastfeeding my baby on my phone, or like,
mhm,
I was sitting in the bathroom while my husband was sleeping and typing on my phone and all this. And I told my husband I was doing it. I was like, oh, I'm writing this thing. And he was really surprised, but supportive. And then I actually quite quickly wrote the first draft of Wormwood Abbey. And it was kind of everything that I had enjoyed growing up as a child in terms of literature. So I've always been a huge fan of Jane Austen's Northanger Abbey. It's one of the first books I can remember reading as an independent reader.
Mhm.
And I've always loved English mysteries and obviously mythical creatures and a sense of wonder that you get from books like Narnia.
Mhm.
So, and I had at the time, a J.R.R. Tolkien quote at the beginning of the manuscript, which I later replaced with a G.K. Chesterton one because G.K. Chesterton is in the public domain.
Ah, yes.
Tolkien is not, but they were very, very similar. They were just kind of about wonder and creativity. Anyway, so I kind of just mashed everything that I loved as a reader and as a human into this book.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I had no idea what I had. I was just looking at this. I'm like, look, I don't know. And I handed it to my husband, and he kind of put on his like polite face as he was reading it. And then the polite face went away, and he was like, Christina, this is really good. He's like, I thought it would be fun and sweet and charming, but this is really good. And my husband
Mhm.
is extremely critical.
Ooh.
So of art, anything kind of artistic. His dad is a film critic. And so he was just raised with that in his bones.
Mhm.
And so I thought, oh my goodness. And then I had to, it was very funny because I had literally written a novel, but I hadn't told most of my friends and family. So then it was very funny because I remember I called my best friend who is a indie novelist, and I had learned a lot about publishing through her. And I called her and I was like, I have something to tell you. She's like, oh no. She thought I had some terrible thing to confess that I had to work through. And I'm like, I did something. She's like, what did you do? Like, I wrote a novel. And then she laughed for 10 minutes straight.
Like, maybe don't preface it that way next time.
It was very funny. She was like, did you put my profile in a dating site without telling me? I'm like, no, of course I would never do that.
Oh, man. Okay, so 9 children at home, including
Yeah.
newborn, breastfeeding. You write this book
Hmm.
on your phone.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. And also, the other part of the story is that the whole family had stomach flu,
oh.
which provided a temporary distraction. Which sounds weird. I mean, because I was obviously still caring for everyone. I was the only one that didn't have it. This was in December 2022, and I was still caring for everyone, of course, but I didn't have the normal routine of homeschooling and meals because everyone was sick.
Yeah, they're just in the bed.
That's
Wow.
right. And I was just quietly getting in some words.
Okay, so from that point,
Yeah.
drafting the book on your phone to
Hmm.
where you are today, I guess 3.5, little over 3 years later,
Mm.
um, give us the highlights, like what the next steps of because you're on series 2 already, and you like, you have a great Instagram following and this great little community, like, how did you get here?
It's just the Lord. I mean, look, I was writing for joy and I had no readers and I had no sense of platform or marketing or reader demands or,
Mhm.
writing to market. So that year in 2023, basically I've drafted 4 books. Because even though I had the first book came really quickly, I had the rest of the story already in my mind, and not all the details, but just the broad sweep of, I knew it was going to be a family of dragon keepers keeping dragons hidden at the end of the Victorian era in England, and the pressures of knowing that like the modern era is approaching and people are going to discover them, and what are we going to do, and also that I had this sort of interest in like insular communities and what that does to people,
Mm,
and how do you kind of become part of the community in a really healthy way and still protect the things that were beautiful about the isolated community that you started out with. Anyway, sorry, that's another thing. So I drafted the 4 books, and then was sending them to friends who are authors who were helping me with developmental editing and getting betas and finding an editor and a cover designer. All of that stuff was happening in 2023. And honestly, looking back, I can see that I was just very, very blessed by a lot of the choices that I made, not realizing how much impact they would have. So, for instance, the covers,
Mhm.
I had no idea what to do with covers, and my husband, he's so sweet. He um he came to me and he goes, I want you to let me give this manuscript to one person, and you know this person, and you won't be mad about it, but I want you to let me not tell you who it is. And I
Mhm.
was, for like a week, I was like, no, you can't do that. And then a week later, I was like, okay.
Uh-huh.
So what he did without me knowing was he sent the first book to the person who is a friend of mine, who's now my illustrator, Shiloh Longbottom, who's done all those beautiful luminous covers that have brought me so many readers. He sent it to her and he said, I want to commission artwork for the cover out of like, it was like his own like coffee money.
Oh, yeah.
And so he surprised me with the first cover. And
Oh,
that was so amazing because I think I could have spent months like worrying about, who should I hire? What should the brief be? Blah, blah, blah.
yeah.
And so the other thing that was cool about that is that my cover designer now is my number one, number two, maybe after my husband, my number two fan.
Oh,
So we have this wonderful creative partnership where she reads early drafts and starts working on, artistic ideas. And that's been so beautiful because that kind of creative partnership isn't often found.
yeah.
And she's another yeah, a mom and a Christian as well.
Mhm.
And so we have a lot to connect over. Oh, I'm sorry about the sound of the drilling.
Oh,
We
I
have we're building another phase of our ministry up on our property here. So
yeah.
apologies for that. Anyway, so looking back, I realized that the Lord brought a lot of things in, and I should say that back at the time when I had prayed and said, okay, what am I going to do with these stories in my head, Lord? Is that I also said, if there was any chance of there being a little more money,
Right, yeah.
because we've been on a single income ministry budget for the entire time we've been married, really. And
Mm,
recently, our ministry was able to pay me part time as well, which has been a wonderful blessing, but it's still not a lot for a family of 12. And we happen to live in an area where there's a lot of rising costs of living very quickly.
mm,
And we need to be here because this is where the Lord has put us to do ministry. So it's not an
mhm.
option for us to, go somewhere cheaper.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that happened very quickly. And then at the end of 2023 is when I started publishing. And one of my author friends had said, kind of said casually, oh, these books are pretty short. You should do a rapid release strategy. And I knew nothing. And I was just like, oh, rapid release strategy. Okay. So then I kind of locked myself into releasing the first series every 3 months. And again, that was actually an excellent strategy that somebody
Okay.
just dropped in my lap.
Uh-huh.
I will say that for anyone who wants to look at self-publishing, there's one book that I would recommend, and it's called Let's Get Digital by David Gowron, and it's actually free.
Okay.
Um, you should that will save you a lot of trouble because he in that book he basically says here are some myths about what you have to do to self-publish. Don't do these things. Do these core things, and focus on those. And that was very, very helpful.
Mm.
Anyway, I'm sorry, I don't know how much you want to get into the publishing side. So anyway, um, and then it was in 20, really in 20, so I started publishing the end of 2023. And then at in 2024, something happened. The books just started reaching a lot of people. And people started telling other people about the books.
Mhm.
And I started getting some media interviews that helped get me into new markets. I was interviewed by the national newspaper in Australia, the Australians, kind of like USA Today, but for Australia.
Yeah.
And and that helped me find Australian readers because before that they were mainly in the United States. Um,
Hmm.
and it all was a whirlwind. And all along I have tried to be, try to look at it as a business and try to kind of apply for things and move things around and change things that don't seem to be working and work on my messaging and work on the things that I'm weaker at.
Mhm.
But as much as I've tried to do industry best practice, a huge part of the fact that my books have found such a big readership is just a blessing. It's just the Lord,
Mm.
in
Yeah.
my view.
Yeah, yeah.
So at somewhere along the line there, I started getting messages from foreign rights scouts
Right.
saying, "Hey, have you sold your rights to this language or that language?" And I was like, "Oh goodness, okay, I don't know how to do these contracts. Oh, I should find an agent." So I had no idea how hard it is to get a literary agent. I now know that people spend years, years and
Mm.
years and years trying to get a literary agent. And that was, I just I was not aware of that. So I probably had more chutzpah than I realized. And I kind of just cold emailed a literary agent in London with screenshots of my Amazon sales and said, "Help."
I love it.
And I got an email back within 2 hours
Wow, that's amazing.
saying, "We can help."
Yeah, yeah.
And so we're just about to do our second foreign rights deal. We've done one with in Hungary.
Mhm.
And the books, it's a whole different experience in another language, but the books seem to be doing quite well in Hungary. And so that's been a highlight, is having my books in other languages. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, people ask me, oh, if you knew what you knew now, that they'd be so successful, would you go to a traditional publisher first instead of self-publishing? And actually, I would say no, and even more so that they have been so successful because publishers want certain things from a manuscript, and my first novel did not have those things.
Mm.
And the nice thing is that now that it's gone out there, it actually proved, oh, well, I didn't put these things in it, and it's not the length and it's not the format that a publisher wants. But look, readers want these things.
Mhm, mhm.
And
Yeah.
that actually is nice because it makes space for other people to come along and go, hey, Wormwood Abbey did this.
Mhm,
I can do
mhm.
that. I
Yeah.
don't have to listen to the publisher that says the book has to be, 75,000 words, and that if it's adult fantasy, it has to have spice, or, various
Right.
conventions. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm
Yeah, and
anyway, did you want to ask?
yeah, gosh, there's so much in there. So first of all, yeah, to the not going traditional publishing, because with self-publishing, you get more of the financial return, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you
this is
what are
what
your
people don't realize. So you might
yeah,
get a nice advance from a publisher, but you may never earn out the advance. And if
yeah,
they haven't done a good job of promoting your books, then they won't put it in another print run. And then you have to wait maybe years for a rights reversion before you can do something yourself. Yeah.
yeah.
So, I mean, literally, I did not think. Okay, let me explain. My husband spent coffee money on the first
Yeah,
illustration for the cover because we thought we would make nothing from these
yeah,
books.
yeah, yeah,
I literally thought, I remember at one point just sitting thinking, gee, I'd like to make $200. That would
yeah,
be nice. And and then when people started really downloading, I mean, I remember the day when I had a big boost from offering the book free for a short time through a promotion, the first book, after I got 3 books out. And I picked up my phone the next day, and 35,000 people had downloaded the first book.
oh my word.
And I panicked. I was like, who are these people? Who are you? What are you doing? Why do you want to read my weird little book? And a lot, many of those people went on to buy the whole
Yeah,
series, and that's how one of the ways I found my audience. But I think that was shocking to me because I thought, by putting all the niche things that I enjoy, as
uh-huh,
a homeschooling mother who loves classic books, and I just put it all in that first book. I
yeah,
didn't care.
yeah,
I thought my market was going to be pretty small. I remember thinking at one point, oh yeah, maybe I have like a couple hundred readers. I think that would be great.
mhm,
If I could just find a couple hundred readers, that would
uh-huh.
be really lovely. There's probably a few hundred people out there that are a little odd, like me, in the ways that I am a little odd.
Yeah, yeah. No,
And then it turns out,
it's
no, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of us.
yeah, yeah, and the weird thing is, I feel like the more niche you make it these days,
Yeah.
the more chance of success it can be. Because
I
any
think, yes, and I think publishers don't realize that, but it does. I think
yeah,
people want things that feel human. They
yeah,
want things that don't feel like they're you can get at the drive-through McDonald's.
yeah, or just any airport bookstore. Yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
and your books definitely feel human. There's lots of humor, lots of joy, and it's, like, clear that it's the joy of the Lord, but without it being preachy, and yeah, so, I mean, and again,
Th-
cozy
This
Gothic
was
fantasy,
yeah.
wouldn't think that's a thing. I didn't know that was a thing, and I was like, "I'm so glad it is."
Katie, I'm not sure that it was.
Yeah.
Because I think that I kind of made it up. I have tried to actually remember, because I remember reading. I had this feeling that I wanted in the book, which is a feeling of you're sitting in an old abbey in Yorkshire, and the rain's pattering on the window, and there's a fire, and there's a cup of tea,
Mhm.
and you're reading a good book, and you have a dragon on your lap, a friendly
Yeah.
dragon. And when I had that picture in my head, I thought, so it's gothic because you've got the sort of family secrets and the mysterious abbey and mysteries, but it's cozy because you know that nothing really horrible is going to happen to anyone. And the main character has a supportive family that loves her, that
Yeah.
allows her to kind of fly and thrive.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, so it's cozy gothic. And like I now think maybe one other person might have been using this phrase, but it's hilarious now because I see it everywhere. Like
Yeah.
just quietly chuckling in my sleeve and going, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and as I'm like been reviewing these books, I'm like, if y'all know any other cozy gothic fantasy novels, send them my way. Like, I don't know if they'll be this good, but yeah. Um, so all these influences that you've poured
Mm.
in, Little Women, Jane Austen, Jane Eyre, the gothic novels, the Jekyll and Hyde, I mean, everything, and the dragons. But what once you started writing these stories and really getting into it and seeking publication or publishing rather, what
Mhm.
was the main thing that you've wanted readers to get out of these books? Like, what's your goal? What's your mission?
Oh, I'm not sure that I've ever put it in quite those words. Um, it's funny. Somebody actually posted a line from Menagerie of Dragons the other day on their Goodreads, on one of my readers, and I read it and I was like, oh, that's about me. Like I didn't have that in my mind when I wrote it, but I'm like, oh yeah. So my main character in The Secrets of Hormdale is a author. She's a detective novelist, and she writes mysteries and detective stories um, because she has a strong faith, and she believes that essentially goodness is going to win, right? So that's why she writes detective novels. And so there's a line that she says in the book Menagerie of Dragons, my newest novel, where she turns to her younger relative and she says, um, I don't write books to remind people how much things hurt. I write books to remind people that hurts can be healed.
Mhm.
And I realize that's actually quite a meta
Yeah.
quote about my books, because some cozy fantasy, there isn't very much conflict. And it literally is, I opened a bookstore in, I'm a gnome and I opened a bookstore and made coffees for mermaids,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's fine. Like I'm not critiquing that at all. But for me, in order for me to really feel, I guess, the warmth and glow of a fire, I need to feel a little bit the chill of the frost, you know?
Mhm.
But at the same time, a lot of high fantasy, epic fantasy is so hard to read because it's like, oh, and here's the scene where the whole village is massacred, or
Yeah.
you know, or here's the deep POV of somebody whose people have been oppressed for 2,000 years, and
Mhm.
dehumanized, or whatever. I'm not, again, those books are important. I'm not, people need to write what they need to write, what God gives them to write. And
Mhm.
honestly, whether Christian or not, I believe that God still gives many non-Christians to write important books. Um, but for me, I needed to feel that okay, there is darkness and there is coldness, but the light is more beautiful against those.
Mhm.
And so in my books, I think I tend to touch on fairly mature themes. It's often difficult to explain when people ask me, can my children read these books? And
Mhm.
what I usually say is, hey, if your child reads classics, they can definitely read my books, because there's nothing, I never shove ugly things into people's faces in my books. And I never
Mhm.
put, you know, I try not to put like really traumatic experiences on the page. But what I will do is show somebody who is healing from a past trauma, or healing from something that they've been seeing the world in a way that's unhealthy, and that they're gradually beginning to realize that there is hope, and
Mhm.
and so I tend to focus more on that part of the journey,
Mhm.
um, on the healing part. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and you do a good job of that with characters like Lily and even Una and Violet, their father wasn't the greatest, but you don't go like deep into that on the page, and so you kind of get the vibe of what they've been through, but then, like you said, the healing on the other side of that. Um, So speaking of age group and who should read it and who should not, like I'm 37, I loved all these books, but then as I'm reading them, I'm like, is this YA? I don't know. So have you ever made the decision of like that it's YA or that it's adult?
No, okay. So technically it's not YA if the main character is over 18.
Okay, okay.
That's actually something in publishing. The interesting thing is that many, many, many adults do read YA because
Yes.
it tends to be a little less hard-edged. I mean,
Mhm.
and there's some very hard-edged YA out there. Let's be real. But a lot of reasons why adults read so much YA is because they do want something with a little bit more of a sense of hope and
Mhm.
like some of the themes about like embracing your vocation. Which are associated more with YA, but actually really relevant for even people in their 30s and 40s.
Mhm. Mhm.
So no, it's not YA. It's not YA technically from a publishing standpoint, because my main character is 21. But
Mhm.
one thing that I did is I tend to write, and it's funny, even when I try not to do this, it happens, which is that I write about people of all ages.
Mhm.
So you won't find, a lot of there are a lot of YA books out there, for instance, where they're just teenagers. It feels like the world is just teenagers.
Mhm.
Um, and again, in other genres as well, that it's just, oh no, we're just going to focus on this age group. But for me, I mean, I have 10 kids, and so I have a 17-year-old that you know is in my home, and I have a 2-year-old in my home. And my parents live next door, a paddock
Mhm.
away.
Yeah.
And we have international backpackers that live part of the year in a accommodation on our land. They're fruit pickers in the local orchards. So I'm used to being surrounded by people of all ages, and that finds its way into my books. And in fact, it's something that I love. I love writing about. And people have mentioned that a lot of readers really enjoy the blended families, the families working together. That's
Yeah.
important for them in
Yeah.
reading. So yeah, so it technically is adult fantasy, but in the same way that you could hand Pride and Prejudice or, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde or Ivanhoe or trying to think of it, Little Women or,
Mhm.
any of those books can, Anne of Green Gables can be enjoyed just as much by an adult. Pride and Prejudice can be enjoyed just as much by a 10-year-old.
Mhm.
That's kind of the vibe I was going for. I
Mhm.
read a lot of classics. I read classics to my kids, and I kind of took inspiration, probably unconsciously, from that, from not locking myself into a specific age group. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I love it. So, speaking of 10 kids and varying age ranges, you also have 8 POVs in this book, is that right? So, I was like, is this because she has 10 kids? What what inspired that, and will it continue?
Yeah. Okay. So the funny thing was when I started Woodward Abbey, one of my main inspirations was Edith's voice, and
Mhm,
she's kind of, she's got a very specific, distinctive voice.
mhm,
She sounds like a Victorian. She's maybe a tiny bit judgy,
mhm, mhm,
which was kind of fun to write. And I had that very specifically, and I just knew that this was what her voice was like. So when I finished 5 books from her perspective, and it was so natural for me to write in her perspective by the end of that, and people had really, bonded with her. And then I thought, I want to write a book 10 years later that picks up some of the same characters. But I thought, I don't want to be limited to just one POV because now there are so many people we care about. I'd love to be able to write from some of the perspectives of some of the people that we
mhm,
got that I've been only got to know through Edith, like Gwendolyn and Simon and Jane Yushek, and be able to
mhm,
see what does life look like for them from the inside, not just through Edith's eyes. But then the other thing, of course, was I just thought can't, I don't think I can develop a first person POV right now that feels as distinctive as hers.
mm.
And also, sometimes multiple POVs in first person are complicated. I don't know if you find that you're sort of like, okay, who is I in this section of the book,
Right, right.
So I really I spent a bit of time reading a lot of Edwardian literature, and um, one of, I mean, this is one of the books I read was Howard's End by M. Forster.
Mhm.
And I loved the way he did the POVs in there. He has as many POVs as he needs, and he'll swap in the middle of a scene, in fact, which I don't do because readers aren't used to that anymore.
Mhm.
Um, but I learned so much from that, and I thought, okay, I want to have a bit of a change in the feel for this series. It's still going to feel cozy. It's still going to be family led. It's still going to be about families and about how you live your life, but I want it to feel slightly different. So less late Victorian, more Edwardian. And so the Edwardian era was kind of similar to ours in that there was huge technological developments and people felt very rattled by it.
Mhm.
There was a
Mhm.
sense of life is going too fast. We're too distracted. A lot of the same things we say today. So I felt like having this big cast with a lot of POVs would help get the sort of feeling of forward motion that I kind of wanted in the series. And again, I was also just really excited about what does it look like in Violet's head? What does it look like in Simon's head? And
Mhm.
that's been delightful. And also, it was unexpected benefit was being able to write I won't say the names, but couples that everyone loved in the first series, and you only saw through Edith's eyes. I can
Mhm.
now show them
Mhm.
together, from
Mhm.
other people, and that's really fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I know some people prefer first person, but other people hate first person and prefer multi POV. But I guess the thing is, as a writer, you have to do the thing that works for your story.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will say that I had no idea what I was committing myself to because I didn't realize being still a fairly baby author. Still, I did not realize how much easier it is to plot a single POV because with the single POV, you always know what she knows is all that you know, right?
Oh,
There's
right.
only one person that you
Yeah.
have to keep properly keep track of what do they know and where are they. When you write a multi POV, it's just then
Yeah.
you start to realize why some authors have those pin boards that look like a crime investigation.
Yeah. Yeah. What do they know and when do they know it?
And
Yeah.
like, where are they? And what time of day is it here? And
Mhm. Mhm.
so I'm writing the second book now, and I have learned a lot from the first one. I know what I did when I finished the first book, Menagerie of Dragons. I printed it out and I made piles of the different POVs,
Mhm.
like physical piles on the floor. And then I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, I need to weave these all in a way that feels intuitive.
Yeah.
It it's fun. It's always a balance between what do I think my readers want, but also what does the book need and what do I need as an author. So I
Mhm.
know I had two betas after reading Menagerie who said, I don't think you need the POV of Sir George. I don't think you need George Worm's POV. That doesn't really float my boat. And I went back and looked at it. I'm like, this is my favorite thing.
Oh, yeah.
I love him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I need these for me. I need these scenes
Mhm.
for me. Yeah, he's not one of the younger people that's got like a romance developing or like a big plot line developing,
Mhm.
but I'm a 40 something year old
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
And he matters too. He
Yeah.
matters to me. And so yeah, and that's nice. I mean, I've also gotten some readers now saying I loved the scenes with Sir George's POV. He's
Mhm.
so adorable,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm. So what else what since you released Menagerie of Dragons, what do you find that
Mhm.
readers have been consistently loving the most about it?
Oh, a lot of people really enjoy Una as
Mhm.
I think that it's harder. It is actually, in fact, it's definitely harder. It's harder to write a heroine who is a bit softer or more introverted or anxious. That's actually really hard to do. So it's easier for me. It's funny because I'm actually probably a bit more like Una, but it's easier for me to write Violet.
Mhm.
Writing writing Una takes a lot more care and thought.
Mhm.
Because she's somebody who doesn't react to things without a lot of thought, you know, whereas Violet will just react.
Mhm.
So it's very freeing to write about her. Um, but yeah, I've had so many people. It's really surprised me actually in reviews or writing to me and saying, I have never seen a female character that represented me so accurately.
Mhm.
Um, as someone with a little bit of anxiety. And again, it's not, she doesn't have like a condition,
Right.
but she is just somebody who, tends to wake up in the night and worry about things.
Yeah.
Somebody who tends to second guess the decisions she's make or things she made or things she says, or think about how people perceive her.
Mhm.
And a lot of people have written and been like, oh my goodness, I never see this. So that was lovely. I didn't expect
Yeah.
so many readers to be Unas.
Yeah, well, and that's not the type of heroine that's trendy necessarily or
Mhm.
that a lot of writers write about, but, I mean, more of us are probably more on the Una side than on the Lila side. Like, most of us aren't running off and having these grand adventures. We're staying home and tending the, maybe not
Yeah,
dragons, but we're tending the home, so,
yeah,
it
yeah.
makes sense. Um, so this is a big question, whether
Mm,
it's your current book or the series as a
mm,
whole. How has God shown up in these stories for you, whether it's in the story itself or just
mm.
for you as the author?
Well, I mean, I've just on a practical level, I've shared with you that, these books are actually feeding my family now. I mean, our chronically ill daughter now has a cabin, that we
Oh,
were able to build her from the proceeds of the books
wow.
completely. Um, it's in our yard,
Yeah.
so she can, but she really needed her some private space. We don't have a huge house and we have a lot of kids in it. And when
Hmm.
you're chronically ill, you really need time to rest and recharge. So, the Lord has hugely shown up in just providing for me through creative work, which is, I know, n- not the experience of many people. Many people do creative work and don't get, remunerated for it. So that's been hugely a huge blessing. Um, Another thing has been that it has helped my mental health. So I have off and on dealt with seasonal depression, and writing has really helped with that a huge amount. And it was funny because after I wrote the first book, I was worried that maybe my family wouldn't like me writing, that they would feel like I was spending less time with them, or that maybe my mind was too occupied. And I kind of said to my family, hey, do you miss that I'm not doing as much sourdough baking?
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm not making sauerkraut and kimchi anymore or whatever.
Hmm.
And they all like kind of looked at me and they were like, "No, we like you better.
Yeah.
You're happier. We like you better." And that was really lovely. Because I do want my family to feel loved and cared for. That's really important to me.
Hmm.
So to know that they felt like that it actually improved the tone of our family life for me to write was really
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And and another thing has been, I do, so like I feel like this past year, 2025, has been like, it's been a fraught year in the news, and for many people it's been very anxious. There's been a lot of anxiety surrounding world events,
Hmm.
and just people feeling safe in their communities, on all different, places on the political spectrum. I think people feel anxious.
Hmm.
And one of the things about my stories is hope. And I think they do feel hopeful.
Hmm.
Again, because I don't completely, pretend that nothing's wrong with the world, and touch on some things that we still struggle with today. But I think that there's a hopefulness in seeing characters that confront the darkness in the world with kindness, courage, and tea, as I like to
Hmm.
say.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I think that there's a few lines in the book. In the newest book, I can remember this because I wrote it more recently, but they're also in my first series. Um, Edith has this ongoing dialogue with a character who's not a believer, where she
Hmm.
basically says, I believe the story has a happy ending. Like, I believe
Hmm.
that fairy tales are real in the sense that they tell us something real about the world.
Hmm.
I believe that the heart that holds the universe together beats with love. Those kind of statements. And I think writing that has been good for me as well, in a way
Hmm.
of trying to kind of, not ignore the things that we need to handle in our communities that are bad and need to be addressed, but to just zoom out and go, okay, God's writing a good story and I want to be part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love Edith's dialogue with that particular character. And the probably one of my favorite scenes in Menagerie of Dragons is Edith's scene with that character. I was like, it was chef's kiss. Like it was perfect. It was so perfect. And I was howling with laughter because they just had great banter back and forth. Um, and that character is
I
still not
love that.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I was like, it's funny. That was one of the first scenes I wrote when I
Mhm.
came back to the world 10 years later. And I was like, how would people interact 10 years later? Okay, some of these characters are married and have kids.
Yeah.
How would their friendships have changed or not
Mhm.
changed,
Mhm.
through that? And I had so much fun just going, oh, this is how they treat each other. This is how it works.
Yeah. So much fun.
Yeah.
All right, you mentioned tea, and I have to confess, I don't get tea. Like I drink hot tea when I'm sick or,
Hmm.
just really want a hot, cozy, whatever beverage. But I feel like Americans don't do tea right because if we did, we would probably drink more of it. So what would you, if you had to guess, what would you say is the main thing our tea is missing?
Oh gosh, this is a whole thing. Okay, so my husband's American.
Uh-huh.
My parents are American too, which is why you can understand me.
Okay. Okay.
Um, my husband says I'm bidialectal, that I swap between American and Australian accents to make people understand me. But anyway, so my husband's American, and when he moved to Australia, he was just like, people keep offering me tea.
Uh-huh. Mhm.
He's like, why does this happen constantly? And Australians have a different, I don't know, Australians have a different, slightly different work-life balance. So we will take lots of mini breaks during the day
Mhm.
to have a cup of tea. And it is something that I think helps, like, kind of calm your nervous system, help you look at the bigger picture, reorient yourself. I mean, a little bit maybe less in the age of smartphones when we're all picking up our phone as we're having a cup of tea, but ideally. Um, so tea has theanine in it, which is really interesting because it helps you to feel aware, but it doesn't make you jittery or kind of, it doesn't give you a short burst of energy like
Mhm.
coffee. So it's
Mhm.
actually got things in it that are really good for your brain and your nervous system and to regulate you. But Australians, will have like a packet of really simple, what we call biscuits, which are cookies, but they're not like really high sugar. I don't know how to explain it. Like if you've had like English shortbread, it's a much more toned down sort of thing than like a triple chocolate fudge cookie or something in American style. So
Yeah.
I think that having these moments during the day where you're having something like that, helps with your calmness levels and
Mhm.
to appreciate small moments in life. But
Mhm.
also Americans, and I say this with the greatest love and respect. You guys will do things like add cream. You should not add cream to tea.
Okay.
Don't add cream.
Okay.
Don't add half and half. Just use whole milk.
Okay.
And the water needs to be boiling when it hits the tea bag
Mhm.
or the leaves. Yeah.
Okay.
So don't put like a tea bag in a cup and put it in the microwave. Please don't do that.
Mhm.
Um, and like if you have like a kettle, put fresh water in it. It actually tastes better if you haven't boiled it several times. So put fresh water in it, boil it, boiling when it hits the tea bag, leave it there for like 2 minutes. Depends on how strong you like the tea. I would say try a full-bodied black tea like Yorkshire tea. Um, you can also try things that have a little bit of flavor, like Lady Grey, Twinings, or Paris Tea by Hanley and Sons. I think that's an American brand.
Mhm.
I'm really getting into this, aren't I?
Hey, but these are the things
Why
we
did I
need to
do
know
this?
because,
Why did
like, you're posting about tea all the time, and I'm like, I mean, I wish I liked it more, you know?
I
So,
understand. And actually, I didn't drink coffee until I was 41, and I felt the same about coffee. I was like, what is with people in coffee? It
mhm.
tastes horrible.
Mhm.
And now I really enjoy coffee. It has to be quite weak for me, or it does make me a little bit too jazzed up. But
Yeah, yeah.
coffee. So I think of it as an acquired taste, a little bit like coffee, and you could start with like a little bit of sugar,
Mhm.
and then gradually remove the sugar.
Mhm.
Um, but it is a much more mild. flavor than coffee. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to think of it in a different way. And I would, follow good tea hygiene, like I've explained.
Right. Yes. Okay.
And then honestly, most of the time when I have a cup of tea, I'll have something small with it, like what we call a biscuit.
Mhm. Mhm.
And biscuits are usually more crunchy, and then you can dip it in the tea, or you can just enjoy the contrast in
Mhm.
flavor and texture. It adds a tiny bit of sweetness. Um, oh gosh, I got the nicest. I've never had these before, but I went somewhere the other day and they gave me Biscoff, which is a
Oh, yeah.
um, Dutch. Yes, and I was like, I have now found the absolute perfection in tea biscuit. So like a little tiny little wafer Biscoff
Mhm.
with a
Mhm.
cup of black tea. I would try something like that, and I think that you might start to enjoy it.
Yeah. No,
But
they
it
give
is
you.
it is also partially the social aspect and the ritual, because I think that
Mhm.
a lot, I mean, okay, I think that coffee can be social as well. Coffee, but when you have a coffee socially, it's about going somewhere and doing something with someone. Whereas like my husband and I work from home, our kids are there, we homeschool them. Sometimes, we're overwhelmed. My husband will come out from a back room after a call or a meeting or something that he's doing, and I'll come out from, having told a child to do something.
Mhm.
We meet in the kitchen, we look at each other, and we're just like, let's have a cup of tea.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And the sound of the kettle boiling and us just making that time to sit down, waiting for the tea to steep. It's all part of a kind of a something that's good for your mental health.
Yeah, yeah. That's so good. I think we could really stand more of that in America. And also, if you get Biscoff with it every time, absolutely sign me up. Um, okay, so you said your parents are American, your husband's American.
Hmm.
Where did you grow up? Did you grow up in the States
I
or
grew up here. I grew up here. Yeah.
you grew up in Australia, but your parents are
Yep.
American? So
Hmm.
how did your parents end up in Australia?
They moved with a church plant in the early 80s.
Okay.
And then that church fell apart. But they had already felt very strongly that they felt a very strong call to move to Australia.
Wow, that's so cool. Okay, yeah, I
Yeah,
was
so all
curious.
of our we've got 10 children now with these ridiculous accents. That are, people often think they're Canadian because it's like a strange mixture of Australian and and
Uh-huh.
um and American accents. My
That's so
husband actually now sounds quite different, and when he talks to his American relatives, they're like, you sound you
yeah.
sound strange. Like, I wouldn't say he sounds Australian, but he definitely sounds different.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and like you said, we slip into the accent that's more
Yeah.
pervasive because 'cause I'll go home
Yeah.
to visit relatives in Arkansas,
Yes.
and they live in a more rural area, and so
Yeah, yeah.
the southern twang will come out
Yeah, yeah,
a
yeah,
lot
yes,
more up
yes.
there. So yeah, that makes sense. All right. So this episode is set to release March 19th. Are you gonna
Mhm.
have you mentioned you might have a Kickstarter going. Is that
Yes, yes, yes. So I'm releasing the Ormdale books have only ever been out in paperbacks. And I decided to do some special edition hardback. They're actually cloth bound. They're
oh,
really special. And so the first Kickstarter for Wormwood Abbey has gone very, very well, and I'm now doing the one for the next book for Drake Hall. And I wish I could release these faster, but the fact is a lot of work goes into them, because we're using all these special elements. We have, you know, a beautiful ribbon, we have a cloth cover, we have foiling on the cloth, we have a special foiled dust jacket. We have extra bonus materials. I did a bonus chapter for Wormwood Abbey.
okay.
I'm doing something similar for Drake Hall. Illustrations, cryptic elements, like there's actually a hidden dragon in the book that you're going to have to figure out how to find.
Nice. Really
So
nice.
these are really, really special and exciting. And so you can go on Kickstarter to find it there, and you'll be able to buy the whole series as I go. So I'll add a bundle, so you can get the whole thing. But they're like a collector's edition. They're Smithsonian binding on acid-free paper, and like they're very, very special.
Mhm.
And of course, you can get the paperbacks pretty much anywhere now. You can order them from your local bookstore, in fact, I'd encourage you, if you're
Yes.
interested in my books, or if you've read one as an ebook and you're like, gee, I'd like to have a paperback, go into your local bookstore and say, hey, would you consider, ordering this in for me? Maybe you could buy an extra and stock it,
Mhm.
because I don't have time to do that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have one day a week in my writing shed, and like I
Yeah.
have to fight so hard to not allow all of the business to just crowd out the writing time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Okay.
anyway,
And
but if you go to my if you do back my Kickstarter, you know that it's a lovely thing to do for authors, because it essentially means that instead of having to wait for a new release book to and then slowly get your royalties in, you're getting a payment in advance for your work,
Mhm.
which
Mhm.
is really great. Essentially, what you're doing is you're outsourcing publishing. So you're basically saying, you people out there, would you like me to publish this edition or this book? And they say yes. And it's basically the people, the readers, become the publisher. Mm.
Yeah, that's so much fun. So the special edition of Wormwood Abbey, is it available to purchase now?
It's available with the bundle for Drake Hall. So if you go onto the Kickstarter, you can get it through, as an add-on
Okay.
to the new book. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right. And then for Kickstarter or just buying your books or connecting with you in general, what's your website that people can go to?
It's my name, which is kind of hard to spell, www.christinabaehr.com. Um, but you can also find me on Instagram.
Mhm.
Like, again, it's Christina Baehr.
Yeah.
I don't
Baehr.
have a good way. I was gonna say I don't have a good way for people to remember how to spell my name. I think it's
Yeah, yeah,
Baehr. Yes.
yeah. Well, and we'll be tagging
basically,
you in all our.
basically, it's like Joe's professor's name
Oh,
in Little Women, except the H is in a different place. And in fact, the name in Little Women doesn't exist. The name Bear in Little Women, that spelling doesn't exist. So I think it was either a publishing error that or that Louisa May Alcott just couldn't remember where to put the H.
wow, that's so
Because
fun.
that's our name. That's our name with the H in the wrong place.
Okay, okay. Well, or, people might call their boyfriend or girlfriend Bae, B-A-E. So
Yeah, yeah. Oh, good point.
Bae plus
Oh,
H-R
this
on
is
the end.
great. I love
Yeah.
that. Oh, you've saved my life here. I'm going to use that.
That's the only thing I could
Thank
think
you
of.
so much. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Katie.
Yeah, so Christina Bae HR.com.
Yeah. Oh, and I wanted to say one more thing, which is, this has again been a way that the Lord has blessed my books, and I had this was not something I planned. I did not know that there's a readership of people who really would like to read fantasy, but they don't want to read about magic, which is
Oh,
fair.
yeah.
Everybody read according to your conscience. Don't
Yeah.
read anything that you think is displeasing to the Lord, please. But it turns out they love my books.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I never set out to be, oh, I'm going to write a fantasy with no magic. It was just for
Right.
me. I believe the world is magical. I believe that, pangolins and narwhals, all of these creatures that we live with are just as amazing as unicorns.
Mhm.
Honestly, if I was going to invent an animal, I'd probably invent a unicorn. I'd never invent a narwhal. You know,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. And these are
So
real
I, I
things.
I believe that we live in this enchanted, fantastical, magical world. So this is the way I wrote my dragons. I wrote my dragons as essentially, they're endangered animals, and they have all the wonder and lore of Renaissance dragons that I base them on.
Mhm.
But as it turns out, there's actually quite a lot of people who want to read about this sort of wonder and fantastical world, but don't want to read about anything that involves, spells or fairy dust or, whatever. So
Mhm.
there are no spells or fairy dust
Mhm. Mhm.
in Ormdale. There are just dragons that God made.
Yeah. Amen. I love it. Well, this has been so much fun, and we could keep talking forever. But to wrap up, is there any kind of scripture or Bible verse that relates to your work that you would like to leave us with?
Oh, wow. Let's see. Well, I do love the one in Ephesians where it says, "For we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works beforehand, that we should walk in them." And I
Mhm.
think that sometimes people don't think about the fact that that encompasses creative work as well. So
Mhm.
when it says we are God's workmanship, the Greek word there, as I understand it, is poema,
Mhm.
which is from which we derive the word poem.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that the author was intending to say we're God's poems, but what it does is it links us into the whole idea of artistic and creative work. Really comes back to we are God's creative and artistic work, and we are created to walk in these good works that He has set out for us, and that includes caring for our children, caring for our communities, and making creative work. And
Mhm.
that's something I like to think about and need to encourage other people as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Christina, all the way from Tasmania, thank you so, so much for being on the show. This was so much fun. I would love to have you back on one day.
Yay!
And y'all be sure and pick up, order, have your local bookstore order A Menagerie of Dragons.
Thank you so
And
much.
yeah, Christina, Baehr.com, and you can join the Kickstarter and all the goodness there. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends. Please give us both a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts because that helps us reach more people. And if you enjoy the show, you might enjoy Mississippi Christian Living Magazine, which is my day job. And you can find that at mschristianliving.com. But until then, I will talk to y'all next time.